Hello and welcome. I'm Harry Waters and you're watching Renewable English. Today's lesson is all about hygiene and beauty products and the effect that they have on the environment. Obviously, you can tell that I'm an expert in beauty. So let's get started. But before we do, don't forget, if you need to press pause, just hit that button and have a quick look there for the difficulty level of the tasks that we're going to do. So then, let's have a look at today's objectives. We're going to look at the issues surrounding beauty products.
Look for alternatives.
We're going to think about how we can make a change.
My top tips on harmful products.
And make a planet promise, right?
Yes.
Good job. Now we've got our objectives sorted. Let's take a look at some of the vocabulary we're going to be using today. Have a look at the pictures. And connect them to the words. Which words go with which pictures? It's on your worksheet, and if you need a moment, just press pause. So let's check it out. The first one is to deep dive. Now, to do a deep dive is when you really research into one thing really well. So rather than just looking at Wikipedia, you look at articles written by professionals. This is a great way of avoiding fake news. The next one, to greenwash or greenwashing. This is something a lot of big companies do, where they'll do one sustainable act and make out that their company is incredibly sustainable, when in fact it isn't at all, and it's just a way of selling their own products. You need to be careful about greenwashing. Palm oil is the next one. Palm oil is often derided as being a terrible, terrible thing. It's only terrible because of the way it's made, the way it is grown, and the amount of deforestation surrounding its production. Cosmetics, good. They're the things that generally go on your face, but they're all sorts of other beauty products as well. Can you guess the next picture? It's quite an obvious one. Of course, it's deforestation. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's removing forests, clearing forests. There's so much deforestation going on for many different reasons. One of them, of course, is to grow palms for palm oil. So it's something we need to really think about. But also think about it on a local level. Are they cutting down trees to build a train line near you? That's something you can be directly involved with. That's something you can directly stop. And the last picture there, manufacture. To create something. Manufacture. Good job. Let's move on to the next section. Do you remember what it is? I think you do. It's my beautiful assistant with his Unfun Facts. Over to you.
Unfun Facts.
More than 120 billion pieces of plastic are produced every year by the cosmetics industry. That's like every man, woman, and child buying 15 items a year. Isn't it crazy? In a study by Science magazine, they found that the sprays from hairspray, perfume, and so on could pollute as much as the fumes from a car. Up to 70% of cosmetics contain palm oil. It's not necessary, but they still use it. Chemicals such as BHA and BHT can not only kill sea life, but it can also cause genetic mutations and alter their behavior as well. Finally, we're still in a time where testing on animals isn't seen as a problem by a lot of huge companies. It's just absurd. So now you've seen the video, you know what it's time for, the same as every week, true or false. I'll give you a few seconds to have a read of these true or false statements. Have a quick look. Give it a pause if you need to, because we're going to move on to the first question. More than 20 billion units of packaging are produced every year by the global cosmetics industry. What do you think? False. It's more like 20 billion. Well, 120 billion, sorry. So technically, it is more than 20 billion, but it's an awful lot more than just 120 billion. And as he said in the video, that's like everybody on Earth buying 15 different products a year. I don't think that's necessary. The next one, perfumes, hairsprays, and deodorants pollute the environment as much as car emissions. It is true. And as I mentioned there, you don't smell as bad as the planet feels. The source of that is, of course, Science magazine. Up to 70% of cosmetics contain palm oil. This, I'm afraid, is true. And as we'll see later on, the equivalent of up to 300 football fields an hour are being cleared to make room for palm plantations. Just take a moment to think about how much that is. If I told you to run around 300 football fields, how long do you think that would take you? I know it would take me an awful lot longer than an hour. Plastics and deforestation are the only problems caused by cosmetics. I think we all know that that answer is very, very, very false. There's lots of chemicals that go into the water that harm fish, they harm amphibians, and a lot of them are also carcinogenic, which means they cause cancer. I don't think we need as many beauty products as we're using. I might be ugly, but I don't think there's any number of creams that are going to make me pretty. And the last one, animal testing is no longer legal. What do you think? Do you think animal testing should be illegal? Well, you can see from the side there, it is not. Now, I'm not going to sit here, and shame these brands. But if you'd like to read for yourself which brands still use animal testing, just hit the pause button and have a look there to the side. So they were the Unfun Facts. Let's see what's coming up next. Next, it's a reading. Now, before we read, I always like to have a look at the questions. This reading is all about one of my favorite companies called Lush. I love walking past it in the town centre. It just smells delightful. And they're a company that are all about the environment. They're also all about social justice and equality, which they all go hand in hand, let's be honest. So before we do the reading, let's check out the tasks. So answer these questions. Which three things does Lush represent for many people? In terms of the natural world, Lush thinks it should always... ... What will Lush never do? And from whom will Lush always buy their ingredients? It's all in the reading. And then the synonym match. What are the synonyms in bold in the text for these different words? Okay. So when you're ready, I'll put the reading up. Hit the pause button and have a quick read. Remember to look at your worksheet if you want to do the synonym match and to read the questions as you go. We will look at them again right after you've unpaused yourself. So I think we've had just about long enough now. Shall we check our answers? I think that's a good idea, Harry. Let's check our answers. So the three things, what do you think? Personal values, priorities, or their worldview. And of course, you can see there that I forgot to put a space between two words. Double points for spotting the error. In terms of the natural world, Lush thinks it should always, and you should always. Lush doesn't think this, I think this. Hopefully you think this. Give back more than it takes. What will Lush never do? Lush will never test on animals. Good for Lush. And finally, from whom will Lush always buy their ingredients? From suppliers who don't test on animals. Good job, Lush. So the synonym match. Priorities. Do you remember what that was? Of great importance. Very good. Exploiting. What was the answer to that one? To capitalize on. Well done. Ingredients. Elements of production. To manufacture. To fabricate. To conduct. To operate. And furthermore, additionally. So, let's go from Lush, the company, to a person that seems pretty lush. Stella Abril is our expert this week. And before we see her interview, we're going to check out some of the questions that we asked her. Now remember, this is just a snippet of what we spoke about. Head on over to the website and look for interviews, and you can find the link there for the full-length interview that we conducted last week. Go check it out. So here we go. Question 1. What inspired Stella to go eco? How can we inspire people to use eco-friendly products? What was the first thing Stella did to go eco? What was the first step? Which app does Stella mention to help us when choosing our cosmetics and clothing? And finally, why are traditional beauty products bad for the environment? All right. Over we go to our expert this week, Stella Abril. I have got a super special guest today, Stella Abril. She's the host of the Changes Now podcast and the president for the Arizona Sustainable Apparel Association. And if it's okay, Stella, I'm going to ask you a few questions about beauty and the environment.
It's absolutely okay. Thank you for having me, Harry.
I'm going to jump straight in with the questions. What we'd like to know is, what inspired you to go eco?
I would allow myself to be sort of greenwashed, right? And so maybe 4 years ago, I decided to begin researching my clothing, my beauty products, kind of everything that I use, and just doing a deep dive. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of chemicals and toxins in our products and clothing and the lack of regulations in place here in the United States. So I decided to use what I had left of all of the toxic stuff and began replacing one item at a time with something a little more eco-friendly. And so for me, it was the health impacts of what we were putting on our bodies.
My next question is, how can we inspire people to use more eco-friendly hygiene and beauty products?
I think the biggest thing, right, is creating awareness. It's huge. Most people rely so heavily on the labels and brands and companies to be transparent when most of them, unfortunately, are just, they're not. So really, we have to be our own advocates for health and everything, and ask questions, be conscious about what you are choosing to put on your body, what you're choosing to consume overall. And then I tell people, to really avoid becoming the expert for someone else. There's a million ways to be a conscious consumer, and no one way is perfect.
What was the first thing that you made that you ever used that was sustainable? What was the first step?
I think the very first thing that I did was I started really experimenting with like facial creams and using aloe vera and coconut oil and seeing what worked best for my skin. You know, that was an easy step for me.
How are traditional beauty and hygiene products bad for the environment? In what ways?
You have to imagine that all of these toxins that we're putting on our bodies end up somewhere else, right? Down the drain, in our rivers, oceans, soil. So the same impacts that are happening to us, the animal life and the plant life also absorb these toxins, and they are impacted genetically and developmentally just like we are. There's a change of behavior and death in, you know, fish and aquatic species. There's different genetic mutations in amphibians. In the beauty industry, everything is packaged with plastic, absolutely everything. And you get tiny little bottles that oftentimes cannot be refilled. And so those take decades to biodegrade. And so you really have to take a moment and think, one, yes, can I refill this bottle with something different? But what am I refilling it with, right? Is it just as toxic as, you know, the bottle itself? Then you may have to take a step back and reevaluate.
Can you recommend any companies that are more sustainable, that not necessarily shame the companies that aren't, but are there any that we could look towards that, you know, are slightly more sustainable? Do you have any great tips?
So I do, actually. There is this app called the Good Human app. And it literally has everything: beauty, fashion, home goods, everything sustainable. And they've vetted all of these companies prior to promoting them on this app. It really is my go-to app.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. I feel enlightened even after this short talk. And I'm going to go and reassess certainly my shampooing habits, even though I don't need to do it all that much anymore. So thank you so much for joining us today, Stella.
Thank you for having me, Harry.
Thanks again, Stella, for all your advice and tips. What we're going to do now is check those answers. So what inspired Stella to go eco? What do you think? It was A, toxic products. So the first step for her was realizing the toxicity of a lot of the products. How can we inspire people to use eco-friendly products? Did she say shame them? She didn't. Be more positive and raise awareness. How many of you got that one right? Next one, what was the first thing she did? You can see there, her first step was to use natural products like aloe vera and coconut oil. Good job. The next one, can you remember the name of the app that she mentions? It's Good Human. Good Human. Are you a good human? I bet you are. And the last one, I've given you a sample answer when she talks about traditional products being bad for the environment. There's a quick sample if you want to have a read. But of course, you answer it however you desire or however you see fit, according to the interview. Almost at the end of the lesson, Now it's time for everybody's favorite part of the lesson. If you haven't already seen it on Insta, on @RenewableEnglish, or on our YouTube page, or on our website, then you can see it now. It's over to the littlest renewable for her top tips. Here's Ali with her top tips.
Hi, and welcome to Ali's Top Tips. Look closely at the ingredients before you buy. Ding. Buy your cosmetics from sustainable brands. Get refills for your shower gel if you don't have time to make your own. Look for companies with a recycling policy. Let your face be naked from time to time. Beauty isn't skin deep. Thanks for watching. Bye!
I'll tell you what, I'm a very proud father, that's for sure. Brilliant tips as always, Ali. So if you would like to send in a video, feel free, send it to harry@renewableenglish.com, or of course to the Facebook page, also Instagram. You can even find us on Twitter. But now we're coming right to the end of the show. And you know what it's time for at the end of every show? It's time to make a planet promise. I, Harry Waters, promise to only use ethically sourced creams and a reusable razor. Although I'll be honest, I don't think I'll be using a razor all that soon. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for being with us again today. We'll see you again in a few weeks. We're going to have to take a little break, but don't worry, there's going to be plenty of content on the Instagram page where you can keep up with us. We need to take a break for a few weeks. At the start of April, we'll be back with lesson 9 from unit 5, which is going to be all about travel and transport. See you then. Bye-bye. Bye.